Good afternoon, it's Saul here from Big Change. Today, in this afternoon session, we're going to go through some more advanced reports. Thank you for those who joined me this morning, went through some basic reports in that session. We're going to move now on to some slightly more advanced ones, and we're going to start off by going to my test site. Again, as I said this morning, you can access the reports, the standard reports on the site by going to the Reports tab here. And we've got a list here of all the reports that are on your site. So you will see some that have been bespokely created on your individual sites. They would say this report has been built specifically for yourselves. And then the standard ones are just here. They've got a brief description underneath each one. So we've got job report, views, job statistics for each of your resources on a specified period. And you can also just have a little pop up here and see what it's going to look like before you've actually clicked in. So I'm just going to start this afternoon session by going to the job response times report. And just to load the report, you just click on it and you've got these filters on the left hand side that pop up as soon as you go into it. And you can choose in here, you've got the from and to date. So if we just move this back to run the report for March. Again, those from and to dates will vary on how far back they will let you go and how many days you can run it for, depending on the report and the size of the report, i.e. the job cards report will be larger, so it only allows you to do it for 7 days. I think this one is 62 days, so let's just try that and push it back. And it will tell you, yeah, this report can only be run for 62 days. So we're just going to move it forward to the 1st of March. We've got the options in here for start work and end work on this report. And it's really important for this report that you make that as accurate as possible, because this is going to basically determine the data in the report and how many hours it's being run for. Obviously, if you've got a job response time report, you're going to need to put your working hours in there accurately. So if we choose 9 till 5, and we can select an individual job type, individual job group reference, individual resource group or resource. So if we do this for our call out engineers, and we can select again an individual contact, and we've got tolerated delay in minutes. So how much of a delay can we allow in this report before it flags as an issue? We're going to put that to 0 minutes. Very specific. And tolerated distance at the start. So that tolerated distance at the start is if you've got a job scheduled in for a certain location, how far away from that location are you going to allow for the driver to kind of start the job away from that location? So if he's starting it down the road, or if he starts it in the car park away from a building, say if it's a city centre job and he's had to park elsewhere and he starts it as he's walking to the job, how much of a tolerated distance at the start are we going to allow? So if we put that to, and that's in miles, so if we want to put that to 1 mile away from the location, or we can leave it as the default as 0.5. And we've got tolerated longer journey, so we've got a predicted journey time on every job that you schedule from location to location, depending on where you've got that set up, whether that's a certain contact or whether that's from the last job address. So how much longer are we going to allow for the journeys before we get it flagged up in the report as an issue? If we reduce that to 5%, and we've got the option here to show detail or not in the report. So I'll just do it with the detail shown. So it's listed in here, all the jobs that this specific resource group that we've selected has done. If we don't show the detail, it won't list the jobs like this. It will just have Ian Smith we'll just collapse it, and it will just show an overview through here. So we're just going to extend that out. Again, you can remove the resource group and just do it for all resource groups. So it's a bit of a larger report, but if you want to kind of specify and assess each resource group individually, you can do that. Or if you want to see for a specific contact, so say one of your contacts has a 4-hour SLA and you want to know the response time for that contact for a period, you can run it for a specific contact and see if you're meeting those SLAs, and if you're meeting your required response times that you've agreed with the customer. So here we've got it split into resource group is the one that shows at the top, so the group and all the resources that are in that group. If we go to the second page, it will display another resource group, and so on as we move through the report. So we've got the electricians group here, and we've got a list of all the electricians in this group. So it's just Mike in this group. So it's resource group, and we've got the job type just below that. So these are the 3 jobs that he's done for March. And we've got the contact that he's done them all at the same contact, the Sea Life Centre. And we've got the driving distance column here. Obviously, this is our test site, so the resources usually are not tracked. We don't have those tracking devices on our test site. So it's all showing driving distance as 0 miles. But we've got another figure underneath. So that's the actual driving distance. Underneath that, we've got the planned driving distance. So for this job, it was planned that he was going to have to drive 236 miles. Obviously, he's completed it through the back office, so he's not actually driven. Obviously, it's our demo site, so he's not actually driven any miles. Again, so that's why our calculated driving distance is minus 100%. It's 100% less than what it should have been. And the driving duration, we've got 0 minutes, and we've got 8 minutes and 2 minutes when it was planned to be a lot longer than that, nearly 15 hours for across the 3 jobs. So we've got minus 99% driving duration, so it's a lot less than what we actually planned for it to be. So we can report through here. We can see if our engineers are driving too much, if they're over the distance planned, if they're under the duration planned. We can see that from this report. We've got a column here, created. So this is when the job was created. So this is when it came into us. This is when the clock starts, really. So it came in on the 4th of March at 1:23, and it took us 6 minutes to then schedule it. So it's been created, scheduled, and started, and it's been completed within just over 14 minutes from when it was created. So it's from all those stages, from creation to completion. This one is calculated as 14 minutes. So it will round up or down, depending on how close to the minute it is. So we've got 14 minutes duration for this. And in terms of when it came in, the job duration, it was only started and completed within a minute. And it was planned to be 2 hours. So again, we've got actual and planned. So the actual time was 1:37 to 1:38, and the planned time was 1:30 to 3:30. But it's only taken us a minute, so we're way under what the duration that it was planned for. So you can start to see through this report as well. If you're looking at a specific job type, if you can see through the report that a job type has been defaulted to the duration of, say, an hour and a half, but our resources are taking much less time, they're only taking half an hour on those job types, we can begin to kind of reduce the job type plan time so that we can maybe get more jobs in our schedule, get the engineers completing more jobs. If we can report in this way, we can gather that information and see the length of our job types, how long it's taking compared to the plan time, and maybe make some adjustments on the back office settings on the site. So we've got an overview here. So we've got 14 minutes, and we've got 6 minutes from creation to scheduling. Sorry, we've got 14 minutes from creation to completion. And we've got a few other examples below. So we've got another job here which came in on the 5th, and it was then scheduled, started, and completed within the 25-minute period. So we're getting these response times logged, and we're beginning to be able to report on it. I'm just going to see. So we've got another column here which I didn't mention, which is late. So we can see that this was planned to start at 1:30, but we didn't start it till 1:37. It's rounded up to 8 minutes late for that. I'm just going to head to another page and see if we've got any data on here for any jobs that have been created and then scheduled the following day, or started on the following day, just to show you how that looks. So most of these jobs, for demoing purposes, will have been all completed on the same day that they were scheduled. Okay, so here we can see just an example of what I was talking about. So this one came in on the 18th. A bit of time between when it was scheduled to when it was started. So we've got the planned date. We've got a +1 day on this in the brackets there. So for any examples where it's maybe been created and the next day it's going to be scheduled, there'll be a bracket with a +1 day in there. And it's hard to illustrate on the demo data, but you'll see it more on your jobs, because more of your jobs will come in on a different day to when they're going to be scheduled for. So you can start to calculate the response time over multiple days. So that's why this time is important, because it will stop clocking the time at 5 o'clock. So it would run the hours up until 5, and then it would stop at 5 and resume at 9. I'm just going to show you on our slideshow. We've got, I think I'm putting an example here of the an example here, job response time. So this is an accurate one taken from our actual site. So this is a better example in terms of data. So we've got a job here, that Roadcore Engineer Revisit. We've got it. It was created on the 4th of Feb, and it was scheduled at 2:56 the same day. It wasn't started until 8 days later. So you can see on here what I was talking about with the brackets, that it's taken us 8 days after creating it to actually start the job. So we can begin to report these ones 32 days, and then we've got the duration, lateness, and the response time. You can see it's been adding. I've got the working hours from 8 till 6 on this report, so we can see that the actual and the planned response time on here is across multiple days, and it's calculating the hours on that. Just heading back to here. So that's the job response times report. So the next report I'm going to just go on to is within the financial section. It's the job margin report. So again, we've got the similar filters across the left-hand side, and we're just going to run this for the past week. So we can begin to see here the job margin that's taken from the invoice against the job. So we can see view the jobs through this report. So it is interactive, as many of these reports are. So you can click into them and navigate to the items that it's linked to. And here we can start to report on maybe which job type is bringing in a higher margin, and potentially invest more in kind of promoting those job types, and maybe doing those that are bringing in less margin, a bit less, and kind of spending more time on increasing this margin. And obviously for the business, that would be a good thing. So we've got a report here. We've got it's fairly self-explanatory, this one. We've got the contact, the job type, the reference of that job, the invoice reference, the from and to dates again, and the job duration, as well as the cost, total excluding VAT, and the margin on the far right hand side. Again, with all these reports, you can export them to PDF, Excel, as an email, Word, CSV, or an image. And as well, with all of them that I discussed in this morning's session, you can create a schedule to automatically receive this every week or every month, as kind of an overview for that month of the margins for specific job types. It will take into account the filters that you've got when you schedule it. So if you set it up for a water leak and you schedule that, it will say report parameters will be the ones chosen on the previous page, apart from dates. Data presented in the report will depend on the period selected below, and then you've got the periods in the format that you want to schedule that for. So this is the job margin report, as I said, and you've got, again, you can filter by specific contact, see if margin's higher on a specific contact, or a specific resource group is producing a higher margin. So that's just a brief overview of the job margin report. I'm going to move now to look at these three reports within the management section. So I'm going to start with the Excel management report, and this will download a CSV, as you can see in the bottom left corner here. It will download this interactive document. So we're going to open this up on Excel. And you've got a few things that you need to do before you can start using the report. So initially, you can see these yellow banners across the top. You're going to have to enable editing. You don't have to update now because that's specific to me. And then you've got another pop-up here which says enable content, which you need to enable as well. And then you can start clicking through this report. So you've got to choose the language that you want. So you've got the option between French or English. And you've got the date options as well on the left-hand side, as you would. And you can amend these by just bringing them back or forward through here. So we can do that for 10 days, which would take us to the 7th, or we can leave it just as the week as default. Then you've got the option to download the data. So you've got journeys and you've got jobs. So if we click download data, and it will begin to download the data for all the jobs for the past week's period. And then once that's done, so it's just doing that now. Whilst this downloads it, we're just gonna flick back to the management report, and I'm just gonna show you another report whilst that's loading. So within management, we've got the big data report. So this is the big data report. Again, you can view the pop-up, and you see this one looks like it's got a bit more kind of aesthetics to it in terms of the layout and the coloring on there. So we're gonna run this report for April so far. And again, you've got the same filters from to and resource groups. And this time you've got vehicle groups as well and job type. So we'll just hit view. And we'll just watch this load. So we've got the big data report, and we've got the from and to date, and we've got a heading here which says customer service and quality. So we've got little pop-ups as well in this report which explain the columns. So we've got on-time arrival, lateness, average, overall job completion, first-time job completion, and job completed in time. So we've run it for the last 3 weeks. So it's told us it's week 14, week 15, and week 16. That's of the year. So as the year so far. So we can view week 14 would be from the 1st to the 7th, and so on. So we've got on-time arrival. So the calculation going on here is percentage of jobs that start on time or within an agreed margin. So numbers of completed, it will tell us the actual calculation that's going on. So the number of completed on-time jobs divided by the number of completed jobs times 100. And we've got a percentage basically of those jobs that have been visited on time. So we've got 65%, 63%, and 65%. So you can begin to kind of view your data over the weeks and see if there's an improvement. Again, it's laid out in this table. So we've got on-time arrival is staying relatively the same as these figures would suggest. We've got the lateness average in minutes. So we've got 214, 212, and 88. So there's a drop off in week 16 in the lateness, which is good. So that's reduced. And we've got the overall job completion column. So this is represented here. Basically, we managed to complete all jobs in the group. We've got first time completion. So jobs completed first time without issues. So if you complete a job with issues, then it won't be included in this figure. It will deduct from it. Say you've got no access, or your parts are required, then that would obviously not be a first time completion. So we've got 87%, 89%, 96. Again, that's increase, which is represented here with the first time completion chart, which you can see a gradual increase over the weeks. And the job completed in time has the following formula on there. So the percentage of jobs where the job was completed within the expected job duration. So jobs completed in planned duration divided by total completed jobs times 100. And we can see there's a drop off here in the graph on the final week. So we've not only have we if we drop the lateness, but we've actually dropped jobs completed in time as well. So although we're getting to the jobs on time, we're failing to complete them in time. So we can see in this graph, if we go to page 2, there's another set of data through here. And this is business productivity. So we've got a few columns across here. Again, they're all represented with a brief description. So direct billable. So we've got the percentage of time employees were traveling to or completing jobs compared to the total available working shift hours. So the calculation going on is the travel time plus the job duration is the first sum. And then we're dividing that by the total shift duration taken from the resource settings. And we're timesing that by 100 to get a percentage. So again, we've got low percentage here just because it's the demo site, and again, our driving time on here is not accurate because we often aren't driving 2 jobs. So we've got 4%, 0%, and 13%, which is shown on this graph here. So we've got a drop and back up to about 13%. Unbillable time per job in hours. So we've got the time employees were available for work, not traveling to jobs or completing jobs, divided by the number of completed jobs to show the average unproductive time between jobs. The total working hours minus direct billable time is the first sum, divided by the total number of jobs to get that average. Again, we can see on the graph how that's represented and the figures on here. So we've got an interesting statistic here, the number of jobs per day. So that's really interesting, especially if you're doing it for a specific resource group or for a specific resource. You can see how many jobs they are completing in the day on average, which is done by number of jobs completed per day, total numbers of jobs completed divided by number of resources included in the report, number of days in the report period where jobs were completed. So again, if you want to see a specific resource group, see if the productivity of one resource group is higher than another, you can do that through here. We've also got an average job duration, which is in minutes. The driving time per job in minutes, again, it's really low on our demo site, as well as the driving distance. And we've got an average cost per job. So this is looking at the job duration, the driving time, and it's important that you've got your resource costs set at the resource hourly rate, and the distance traveled to the job is logged against the vehicle cost per kilometre or average per job. We've got a cost here per job, average cost. Again, you can filter through job types. Might be interesting for this one. See which job types are costing you the most as a business. And then we've got the final column is actual time for job versus planned. So we've got the graphs to represent all those figures as well. And again, these can be exported as probably a PDF might be good for this report to get it sent out maybe to your managers on a weekly basis. Again, you can schedule that through here. We've got the vehicle and driver risk management report page on this big data report, which is the third and final page of it. So we've got the speeding occurrences per 100 miles. So again, you can look at specific vehicle groups maybe for this one, see who are the worst drivers maybe or the best, and view them in this report. We've also got the daily vehicle check. So the number of vehicles checked per day expressed as a percentage of the size of the fleet. So again, you can look at that through the vehicle groups. The critical failure per inspection. It's a number of critical inspections. These are going off the vehicle checks that I discussed in this morning's session, as well as the defects, which I mentioned earlier. So this is a summary of those, of that data that's being inputted by the engineers through the vehicle checks. So that's the big data report. I'm just going to go back now to the Excel management report. Something to note, which I saw pop up after I went off it. Once you hit download data, you will be asked to hit your credentials in. So it opened up on another page, which is why I didn't spot it. So we can hit supersol@bigchange.com, which is my login for this test site. I won't tell you my password, although I think I got it wrong. So this is just allowing you access through the Excel interactive option to log in to basically verify the data that you're downloading on here. Basically check that you're a user who's got access to it, and it's just a security function on there to get you to put in your email and password, just to before you download that data. And then this is what I thought it would do. It just takes a while to pull through all the data that you're running for that period, because it is a big report, this, which is why it's done on Excel. But it just needs to pull through all the data from your site into this report. So just give this a minute, and we'll head back to the final report in this management section, which is the notes report. So if we just view this one, and this is going to give you an overview of the notes that have been created on your site. If you do use notes on your CRM, I would probably strongly advise you to start using the notes. If you're not, for any calls that are coming into your business, or logging any information through those notes, so you can set up note types and note workflows. So we're just going to hit view. I'm going to leave all the fields on the left hand side. We've got contact group, contact reference, note owner, and the type, status, due date, and we've got the option to filter by the created in the last certain amount of days if you import a number in there, or completed in the last days, and we've got custom fields that we can filter by as well. So again, this is interactive. We can edit these notes through this report. It's very similar to what you can see through the CRM notes section, but this is just a report that you can schedule to be sent to yourself. That's probably the benefit of it, that you can set up that schedule to receive maybe certain note types, if there's any note types that you got in like a 4-week call. You want to do that every 4 weeks to kind of get a list of actions that you need to do through the week. But it's very similar to the filters that are on the notes section and the lists that are on here. So I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. It's just basically providing a list of all your notes through the report. But as I say, the benefit is that you can set the schedule to receive the export every week, every day, for specific note types or contacts. So that's the notes report. So just head back to here. We can see that 270 items have been received on this Excel management report. So it's popped up telling us that this has been done. And we can then view the data that has been downloaded. So it's taken us to the bottom of the sheet. Just going to scroll up. Or was it the job data I downloaded? So it was the job data I chose, sorry. And we've got a list here of all the jobs details that have come through. So this is job data. And we're just going to scroll along and just see the fields that are on here. So again, just another tip: if you're going to be sorting these items, it will tell you that this is a protected sheet. So just to get past that, you can go into the info, and you've got the protect workbook option here. You can unprotect the menu, you can unprotect the job journey and job data. This will just allow you to sort the information if you want to sort by customer, or if you wanted to sort by status, or if you wanted to remove certain options. If you wanted to remove the completed with issues from the list, then you can do that once you unprotect the sheet. Just got a question on here from Adam Williams from LockSafe. So he's just said, can we change the column width on here? So yeah, once you unprotect the sheet, you can adjust the column width to reduce them or expand them. That's the same on all Excel exports that you're going to do from the report section. So yes, you can amend the column width accordingly. Again, similar function with Excel, you can deal with them all at once. So you can expand them to the maximum or reduce them to a certain length. So yes, you can amend the column width on there, Adam. And so that's the data report. There's obviously data, and the columns in there are fairly self-explanatory. The customers, the postcodes, the start and end dates, the duration, the status, and the actual dates. As well as this report on jobs, we can also go to the schedule list view, which I mentioned briefly this morning. There's a few more filters on there that it will show when you do the export of this, it will show the worksheet answers through here, which I think I explained this morning. So if you want to see worksheet information on completed jobs, then you can do that through the schedule list export. So I'm just going to move on now to the sales opportunities report. There's two reports on sales opportunities. So we've got sales and marketing here. We've got sales opportunity pipeline. I'm just going to start with the sales opportunity report first. So again, if you're using sales opportunities on the site, then you've got, I'm just going to show you briefly the sales opportunity section. So you've got CRM sales opportunity, and you can filter through here as well and export through here. So if we look at what a sales opportunity is, you can put the financial lines in of the expected opportunity, the content that it's for, the person, and the subject. So what you're selling basically, and here we've got a total amount of what that opportunity is for, and we've got a custom field at the bottom of lead source. So where the source came from. So where did they hear about us? And that's really important for reporting purposes. If we just view this, we've got a similar list to what you can see in here. Again, but the benefit of this is that you can create the schedules. You can create the schedules of this report to send every week, or if you want to send it to the salesperson, send their individual WIP to them, you can create that schedule to be sent, and they can work through that, kind of cracking the WIP on there. We can see the information, we can see the filters that we can apply. So the owner we can set that as Serge Fagelman, who's got a few in here, so we can filter that down to just his sales opportunities, and then when we schedule it, it will just send him his because it's taking into account the filters that we've applied. We've got the option for status, probability, and created within a certain day, as well as applying the flags. Again, this is an option that you can use, or you can use it through here and view it this way. You've got different flags on this section which you don't have within here. So that's the sales opportunity report. Again, you've got the filters there. So I'm just going to go to the second report, which is probably more useful in the fact that it's not here already on this section. We've got an option through here. So if we just do that for the past month, we've got a bit more aesthetics on here to kind of view the sales opportunity information. So we've got a list of the sales opportunities, but we've also got this graph at the top. So we've got the different probabilities in here that have been set up against the opportunities. So if we just can see here, there's these hot ones and warm ones, but it doesn't kind of give an indication through here. We can filter by the probability and say there's 13 that are warm, there's 28 that are hot, but through here we've got a visual of how many are in each stage. If we've got loads in cool and nothing towards the warm or hot end, then maybe not doing something right, and we need to work on sales techniques to kind of progress it through from cool to pushing it to warm and hot and very hot. So this gives us a visual, and we can see that we're doing well in the hot section, and what can we do to try and push them across to very hot and eventually win the orders, and obviously create the quotes and so on from there, which Charlie will be going through, I believe, on Friday in his financials talk. He'll go into this in a bit more detail, but this is the reporting that you can do off the back of what he's going to show you in terms of setting it up. So that's the sales and marketing section. So those two reports within there, sales opportunity pipeline and the sales opportunity report, as well as alongside the CRM sales opportunity location where we can export from here and filter and progress these as well. We can progress the detail and amend as they move along. So they're the sales and marketing reports. I'm just going to move down now to the vehicles. So we've got a few options in vehicles. We've got driver check and defect report, which I went through this morning. The one that I didn't discuss was the vehicle consumption and emissions report. I'm just going to take a quick view into this. So what we've got through here is a report on the driving time, but also the important thing from this report is the miles per gallon that we're doing and the fuel that we're inputting into the vehicles. So for any customer who's got Canvas or Taco installed, you'll get the fuel level through automatically from the tracking units that have been installed and through those Taco and CAN recorders on the vehicles. But for those that don't have that installed, you've just got a regular tracker which just monitors the distance and driving, idling, and all that, etc. We can insert the fuel and hence get the MPG calculated by doing a manual import. So we've got a list of vehicles through here. These are all the vehicles on our test site. We've got an option below to import fuel transactions. So it pulls up the regular import screen. And what you can do, I'm just going to grab an example of a fuel import that's been done on one of our sites. So again, you'd log this information in Excel. So sorry, I'm just amending this slightly. So here is the Excel sheet that we've got. And we've got a few fields in here. We've got the date that the fuel was inserted into the vehicle. So when they've refueled, we've got the vehicle registration, which you can insert accordingly for which vehicle's been refueled. You've got the type of fuel, you've got the fuel quantity in litres, you've got the cost per litre as well, and you've got the VAT in percentage. So we've got the fuel station and the address and the postcode and city, which are required for the import. Then you just go to import fuel transactions, choose that Excel sheet and align the columns accordingly. So once we've inserted those details, we can go to the report. And obviously, over time, as we keep inserting the fuel transactions, that's going to work alongside the tracking data for that vehicle. So we can see that the distance for the vehicle was 140 miles. We can see that we refueled 3 times in that period, and we put in 173 litres. And we can then get from the distance and the litres that were put in miles per gallon record off the back of it. So we can monitor the MPG from that fuel input. Again, it will do it automatically if you've got the required tracking unit in the vehicle, but most of our customers don't have that as standard. So they're gonna, if you want to use this report, you're gonna have to import the figures manually. So we've got a question through from on here. We've got a question about how is best to log that information, because there isn't a section through the vehicle checks or anything like that where they can input fuel that's been inputted and used. So we've got a question here saying from Jacqueline, saying how/where is the fuel data entered in the first place? Does it rely on the engineer to manually enter it? So what you can do is there's a few ways to do it really. You can either use the messaging function on the tablet, so you can get the engineer when he does refuel to send a message to say how much he's refueled and where, etc. Probably not the best way of doing it, but that is one option to just get them to message you when they do that. The second option is to get the resource to add it as an expense through the tablet, so they can add it as an expense. They can say how much it's cost them, take a picture of the receipt, and say how many liters they put in through the expenses section. Or the final way that I can think of is to get them to create a job, to give them access to create a job type of refueling, with some worksheets on there where they fill in that information, and they can create that through the tablet whenever they do refuel. And you can set up an alert to indicate you of that, or you can do an export at the end of the month of that job information from the schedule and the list view, report on it that way, and you get the worksheet answers as we discussed visible on that export, so you can see all the information that they've put into the job. So there's three ways of kind of getting the engineers to log that information for where it's not done automatically. So Jacqueline, in answer to where is the fuel data entered, it's going to have to be another step that you create either through a message, a job, or logging it as an expense in order to capture that information. But I think it is really useful to know that about your vehicles, how much miles per gallon you're getting from the fuel, that especially if you're paying for it as a business, you obviously want to kind of keep on top of it and report on that information. I'm just looking through. There's a few more reports that to go through just in the timesheet section. So this morning we went through the timesheet report and the timesheet summary report. There's just another one through here that I wanted to discuss, which is there's two here, the resource working hours, and we've got the option to view for specific weeks. So we can choose the from date, and we can choose the number of weeks from that date forward. So we've chosen 17 dates, but obviously 17 weeks, but obviously there's not that many dates going forward. So we're up to the current week here. So the resource working hours will display, if we just go to show a bit more detail, it will show for each resource the time that they've spent on each day. And it's going off the resource working hours. So again, assessing my account administration and against the resources. So we've got highlighted in red here when it's gone over that resource time, the resource working hours. So this one has gone to 183 hours for week 12, which begun on the 18th of March. And we can see did 142 hours. This is coming from the timesheet activities on the resources tablet. So when they start work and end work through there, and it's just calculating this based off of that. So I thought it was worthwhile just showing that quickly. We're coming up to some question time if you've got any questions. So we're just going to look through the questions that have come through. So Sarah, if we have a 24-hour, 365-day company, what would we do for operational hours? So this is in terms of the job response time report. So she's saying if we've got a 24-hour business and we want to calculate off of that, you can adjust these to include every hour of the day. But obviously it's going to push your response time up for these periods. So it's going to pull out a response time much higher than if you were just to do that through normal working hours. So 9 to 5 or 8 to 6. You can choose to do that, but I'd probably say that you're not going to be very interested in the data of loads and loads of hours on response time. So you can do that if you've got your SLAs to do that for companies and you work through the night, then it may be worthwhile, but you'd probably have to restrict that and do it for specific contacts on the report. So you'd have to search for specific contacts and see if you're still meeting their SLAs through the night. And you can also see if the response time is higher, you can see that when it was completed. So if it was completed at 1-2 o'clock in the morning, you can say we do have a higher response time when it's out of hours, as you'd call it, and maybe that's something worthwhile reporting on and finding that information out. So we've got another question. Michelle said, is it possible to get a breakdown of the big data report? So we've got the big data report is one that really does kind of explain on here. So that information that was popping up is not just information I put in myself. It's there for all of you on the site. So it's got the breakdown there. If you hit the information icon just next to the columns, it does explain in quite a bit of detail where it's being calculated from, which is probably unique from the other reports. So this isn't something that I've inserted for the demonstration purposes. This is available as standard on all of your sites. So it will explain to you what each column is referring to through this report. So that is a breakdown of each column, and again we've got the graphs on each page. There is an information icon against each column and against each item in the report. So yeah, every report that I've shown you across this morning session and this afternoon session, they are all standard reports. So these are reports that are available to every customer when they sign up for Big Change, the Big Change site, and they get the logins. These are standard reports available to everyone. I said this morning I was going to briefly explain. We had a question about bespoke reports. So a bespoke report is something that our professional services team build for you. So you can write the spec. You can say, oh, I like this column on this report. I like to see the average cost per job on this report, but I want it to be alongside the information in the job report as an additional column, or I want it to pull through this information from here. If you write that spec and just lay out how you want it to look, and you let our road crew team know, send that spec across to them, say I want this information in this column, I want it to look like this, then they can pass that on to the professional services team who can quote for that spec and just see if it's possible, firstly, to build you a bespoke report on the site, and whether the spec that you've laid out, whether the requirements that you have are doable, and they can build it for you, and it will be available like these ones that I've shown you, which say this has been built especially to suit your needs. They will show on your site in the same way. You can name it what you want, and you can run those bespoke reports through the site. There's a question here from Kelly. So in reports, when trying to look at sales opportunities, I noticed it goes back only goes back 62 days. Is this something that can be extended? It's not something that we'd look to extend. It's not something that can be extended, should I say. These are the limitations that have been put on for the amount of data that we display. So again, this is another example of one that's probably got the shortest day. So it goes back 7 days, but it won't go any further than that. This is just because it's got logos and it's got images on job cards, and it's gonna probably put a strain on the site if we gave access to longer periods. If we allowed this to be run over 365 days, it wouldn't run. It would have too much data that needs to pull through, and it would just crash, and it wouldn't be able to run. So that's why those limitations are on there in terms of the days. So it's not something that we can change. It is set specifically to each report. We've got a question here. So we have engineers that work 9 to 5 during the day, but also do on call. I think that's related to the 24-hour questions. I'm just going to leave that. So we've got a question here from Damien. Hi, how can we tell the difference between business and private miles? So these are on the tracking reports. You've got the option either through the tracking unit that was installed into the vehicle. Some tracking units have private buttons where you can select a private mileage, but if you don't have that, you've got the options to against the vehicle. Sorry, against the vehicle. Against the resource, I was right the first time. Against the resource, you've got the option to tick box in here, which is down here, working hours, and you've got the out of working hour tracking data is private, so you can choose those options and select private miles. But there are tracking units which you can get private buttons alongside to do the private mileage that way, so the engineer actually chooses when he's on business and private miles, or you can do it through these working hours and selecting private when they're not in the working hours. So we've got a couple more questions. So how is this shown on a report, and can it be filtered so we can just see normal working hours and separate the hours? Yeah, so I'll pick that. As you said, would it be possible to pick this up after the call? So yeah, I'll give you a call following this and just go through that with you. So I'll just go through that individually. If you've got any individual questions about your specific data, then either just drop me an email, or if it can be resolved by looking at the help center, I'll just show you quickly to the help center. We've got Road Crew tab at the top right hand corner, and we've got help center here. If it can be answered by these, there's a lot of articles in here. So just search for a keyword, and we've got options through here. So we've got this option for importing fuel reports, which I showed you. So there's an article on this which goes through it nicely and explains it step by step if you've not followed in this afternoon session. So I'd encourage you all to have a look at the help center if you've got any queries initially. If not, give Road Crew a call. They'll be able to help. But if you've got specific questions following this session on your specific data, then drop me an email and I'll be happy to respond to that or give you a call. So I'll speak to you about that afterwards. And we've got one final question. Can we produce bespoke reports ourselves? So can I add my company logo to a job card? So yeah, so we've actually got I'm actually taking another couple of sessions on Thursday on templates. So this will talk you through how to create a bespoke it's not so much a report, but job cards, financial documents, and information from jobs notes and that sorts of thing. We can kind of make those bespoke and make a bespoke template. So I've got 2 sessions on Thursday if you want to join me for either of those. We've got the basic again in the morning and the intermediate to advanced in the afternoon. So if you want to sign up through the website. But yeah, so if you're wanting a bespoke report, that isn't possible through the template section, so a similar report to this, it would have to go through professional services to build the bespoke reports, and design them as to your spec on there. So yeah, that would initially be raised through road crew. Just send your spec through and say what it is you're wanting. But yeah, so that's the reports, and I hope you've learned something this afternoon. So there's information here on how to contact road crew on this number and this email address. But if you've got any questions, just drop me an email. But thanks for joining.